There's dopamine flowing through us, right? And that absolutely just resonates out into the rest of your life.
You're listening to Good is in the Details. I'm Gwendolyn Dolske, and I'm going solo today. But this is still the podcast where we're learning what we didn't know. All in the spirit of Socrates. Intellectual growth as a pillar to happiness and joy. And boy, is that part of the subject today. Let me tell you how this started. Good is in the Details was selected to be a featured podcast in an online event called Podapalooza. It was a blast, and it was a very different experience, and what you're going to hear is a snippet of that. In Podapalooza, the podcasters are given their own break room on Zoom, and guests who want to be on podcasts, they can join the room, and we record on the spot. It's like speed dating for podcasts. Now, if you've gotten my book, Interview with Intention, or you've taken my course on how to start a podcast, you know there's a lot of research that goes into every single episode. I reach out to a guest, I read their book, or somebody wrote a book and they reach out to us. We look over the work, we plan, we come up with questions, we organize, we email, and then we record. Not this time. So what you're going to hear is unplanned, but a lot of fun. My guest is the best-selling author of Living an Orgasmic Life, Heal Yourself and Awaken Your Pleasure. She is also the founder, the leader, the CEO of Passionate Intimacy Retreats. She offers couples private intimacy retreats, coaching for women, and virtual coaching. Don't worry, everybody. I know you're wondering, how can I learn about this? It's all going to be linked in the show notes. She also has a newer book called The Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit, How to Enhance Communication and Create a Lifetime of Passionate Intimacy. My guest is Xanet Pailet. Now, as you may have heard me say on the show, that one of the university courses I teach is philosophy of sex and love. What do philosophers care about sex and love? Well, one of the things that I'm interested in is the meaning behind this activity. As philosophers do, we have all sorts of questions, want to know about assumptions. And it is true that right now there is a sex recession. And there's been a lot of inquiry into why this is happening. Now, for my own studies, academic studies, and in lecturing, I've got, articles on this, read books on this. But man, how lucky am I in this Podapalooza event to be paired up with an intimacy coach who does this, understands the psychology, and works with couples. So all the academic background stuff that I've got, I was able to dive in the practical aspect of the matter. And what I mean by the meaning behind things is that if sex is missing, it's not just about sex, but sex is the expression of one or more of this list of things: love, vulnerability, trust, fun, communication, adventure, health, joy, which means that if the sex is missing, those things are missing. And it's not just among the younger generation, but it's among older people. So what are we doing to chip away at these important elements of our life that is then expressed in a lack of sex and intimacy? And yes, partly it's because you're on your phone all the time. But hold on to that phone to listen to this podcast and then go talk to somebody. I have to do an explicit rating on this one. So don't have the young people listening. That includes you too, Rudy. Cover your ears. And just before we dive into this brief blind podcasting date, if you've ever found yourself thinking more about the conversations that you hear on Good is in the Details, you've brought it up in conversation. Oh, I heard this on a podcast, or you shared an episode with a friend. Thank you so much for that support, because that's what keeps this going. And I invite you to go to patreon.com/goodisinthedetails so that you can get that extra content, join our book club, stay on top of upcoming episodes, and support the pod so we can keep cranking out this good work. All right, let's talk with Xanet about intimacy. What is going on? Why are we missing it? And how can we reconnect? Let's see, this is rapid fire, but we're talking about desire, sex, and intimacy. I noticed that in the classroom. So, I mean, I'm Gen X, so I've got like these younger 18, 19-year-olds, and they have a radically different understanding of intimacy, where I want to say that their first education, because of the internet, is coming from things like porn.
Right.
That kind of an education is leading to sexual experiences that are so unpleasant to the point where they're avoiding relationships altogether. And so it turns out that they are actually having less intimacy than the previous generations. And a lot of that has to do with knowledge, the lack of understanding about pain, the lack of understanding about health and pleasure. Do you mind if I kind of jump in from that angle?
Sure, we can work that angle.
Yeah, what is you're an intimacy coach, you talk about desire. I know this is also about long-term relationships, but can we talk about some educational tools or ways of thinking about intimacy that is healthy for younger people? Because instead of just saying, don't do it, like
Yeah. And yes, I mostly work with midlife couples, but I definitely track what's happening with respect to sexuality in younger generations. And absolutely true, the younger generations are having less sexual interactions, like just the data shows that. And we're also seeing that they're having a very hard time actually creating connections with other people. And of course, that is the, if you will, the bulwark. It's like the central core of a healthy sexual relationship is feeling like you can be safe with somebody, that you can express your boundaries, that you can ask for what you want, which a lot of people just don't feel comfortable doing. And you can have a hell no. And that it will be respected and listened to. Everything that you're saying, right? Not only where do younger people learn about sexuality? Well, we don't teach it anymore. Not that we ever did a good job, even in my generation or probably your generation, but now we just don't teach it at all in public schools, basically, right?
yeah.
They're learning about it from porn and from the internet and social media. And now they're learning about it from AI. There's real relationships. I think that's one of the interesting trends that is happening that you're seeing. I'm not saying it's healthy. I just think it's interesting that there's more and more people having relationships, intimate relationships with a chatbot because it's easier and they're getting the positive feedback that they want in terms of being able to open up to them and feeling seen and heard, which is all really creating that emotional safety and emotional connection at the core is what allows you to create a good sexual relationship with somebody, whether you're in a long-term relationship or you're just dating, but you've got to feel like some level of emotional connection and safety with them to be able to feel comfortable saying your yeses and your nos and talking about sex. So I think we're in a
AI.
really interesting transition right now.
One of the things that helps us, I think, when it comes to intimacy is, and this doesn't just have to do with sex, this can even be in connections with friendships. We hate to feel vulnerable. We don't want to feel any shame. And slowly we've done things to eradicate that, even eradicate rejection through the apps, the swiping, just only giving the best image of ourselves. And in this effort to erase vulnerability and shame and rejection, we've lost what it meant to be human, to the point where, like you're saying, an AI. But the thing is that one of the ways that I grow, let's say I want to go out and do something fun, like, hey, let's go out to dinner, whatever. And my partner rejects that. If I turn to AI and I get my needs fulfilled, somehow I can have a robot go to dinner with me. That doesn't actually make me grow as a person because maybe my partner is saying, I had a shitty day. And then I would have had a chance to sit there and listen and be there for that person instead of just satisfying my own needs, and I could grow. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, I'm not telling you that I'm not saying this is healthy. I'm just saying it's the trend. And yes, like I don't know, because I haven't had a romantic relationship with an AI chatbot.
Neither have I.
But what I know about ChatGPT, because we have a good relationship, is like it's constantly validating me. It never, it rarely challenges you, which you're right. A partner partner in a real intimate relationship would challenge you because they actually have feelings that have got
Yeah.
hurt. And that doesn't happen, in a chatbot situation.
Wow.
But it's a real thing that's happening. Like we can't ignore that as something that I think is changing. An interesting piece of data, there's this company called ARIA. I don't know if you're familiar with them, ARYA, but anyway, they're a sexual wellness company and I'm a member of them. They released this very fascinating study. They surveyed 300,000 members, right? So that's a big pool, it's a big N. One of the things that they found out in their 2026 intimacy survey was that the number one thing that people actually wanted was connection this year. Connection and emotional intimacy, more than kinky sex, more than different types of sexual experiences. That was the number one finding, which I found really fascinating. And I think, again, it also reflects where we are as a culture, where we are as a society, how disconnected we're feeling on the political spectrum, and how people are really craving to have that emotional connection and that emotional intimacy, but we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to get there with our friends, with our partners. We're scared about being vulnerable. And yeah, I love your point about all of these apps have taken away rejection and shame and all of these other things. And you present yourself as like, life is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not, right? We all have our stuff. And it's through that stuff that we learn and we grow with a partner or by ourselves.
Yeah, I know that you help couples in long-term relationships kind of get their spark back and talk about it. Before we get to those tips, I'm curious, what is a common thread despite all of the different types of relationships and people, but the couples that do have a healthy and they are enjoying their intimacy? What's a common thread there?
So for me, what I see, because I work with so many couples, they have emotional safety with each other. They have emotional connection. And most importantly, because of that, they know how to repair conflicts when they show up. So they're not building up all of the resentment and the wounds that we do in romantic relationship. They're not afraid to tell their partner, oh, that hurt me, and express their feelings. And they know that their partner is going to hear them and not, invalidate them.
I've heard the difference is it's not that healthy couples don't fight. It's all in the way in which they make up or repair. Oh, wow. Okay. So what are our feelings about introducing toys for those couples that are stuck? And can we talk toys?
We can talk toys. I think that my process, what I work with my couples, my company is Passionate Intimacy Retreats, and I actually do intensive retreats with couples over a 4 to 5 day period. It's a very immersive experience. And where toys show up for us, generally speaking, is around sensation, because there's different types of sexual styles that you can experience. You might be more sensual, you might be more energetic, you might be more sexual, you might be more kinky. But sensation, especially for a lot of women who tend to be more on the sensual side, can really start to drive up their arousal. And I think that's another thing, right? Like now with younger people, younger women, they have less of an issue, generally speaking, in their arousal pattern because they have their hormones, which are surging. But, as we start getting older, like that arousal gets harder and women need a lot more time to warm up. So whether you're using, when I think about toys, I think about using like soft furry gloves to create sensation. If you want something a little sharper, a soft glove that has little spikes on the other side to create sensation in the body, right? To really start to build up the arousal through different types of sensation play, using hot, using cold, for a lot of people can be very helpful. Toys, I love toys. I have a whole closet full of them. I think are very useful when you're at that point of, really wanting maybe to get to orgasm or maybe wanting to play with dildos or couples toys or whatever, when you're more aroused and ready for that sexual level. And again, different people have different arousal pathways. Some women get aroused super quickly and they're ready for intercourse, if you will. But for most women, they
Longer
need
preheating the oven.
I'd like to say like the men are like popcorn in a microwave, And we're more like a cake that has to bake in the oven, and we have to get warmed up from the outside in. Not to say that you can't have sex or you can't have an orgasm, but you're not going to have the same level of sensation and pleasure and intensity because your nervous system hasn't had enough time to actually get to that place of high arousal as well as high relaxation, which is where orgasm actually happens.
Yes. What do you find happens to couples when they do get this spark? Because it's not that intimacy and sex, we bracket it as though that's separate from like, oh, wait, the bills need to be paid or who's doing the childcare or those kinds of things. And then it's not a bracket that people, when they have a really good, playful, fun, intimate experience, and the next day they can go into work feeling they can conquer the world.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
what are some outcomes that you see, like the difference it makes in people's lives that has nothing to do with sex, but that bringing it back, how does that positively affect other areas of their life?
I mean, it has such a huge impact when you're feeling like seen, heard, understood by a partner. It makes you feel very human. Right. And that's incredibly powerful. And when your relationship is solid and strong, like everything is better because when it's not, everything falls apart. The way we feel around our relationship, the way we feel around our sexuality really has an impact on all aspects of our life, whether we're feeling fulfilled and full up or whether we're feeling empty and desolate, whether we're feeling loved and cared for versus whether we're in a long-term relationship, but we're so lonely. We just want to like jump out the window. And it totally impacts. There's all sorts of chemicals in our brain. When we are in this good space, there's a lot of oxytocin that's flowing through us. There's dopamine flowing through us, right? And that absolutely just resonates out into the rest of your life and into the rest of your world. You see it all the time. When people are depressed, it shows up everywhere, right? Their work suffers, their relationship suffers, their sleep suffers, their health suffers. Absolutely the same. When you're not, when you're in a really good place and life feels good and you feel sustained and you feel cared for and loved and your body feels good and well taken care of, then like the roses look redder, the strawberries taste juicier. Right?
When people get stuck, is there something in common? Do you work with all kinds of couples of like all different types of like same-sex relationships or heterosexual? In all of these, what's a communication gap? So it's like when men saying she or he is not having sex with me often enough, it's like once a month. What are they communicating that women should understand? And then when women say that they'd rather read an erotic fiction or they're not in the mood or I don't know, what are we saying and then what do we actually mean?
I think that's a great question. So I think it's a couple of things. I think that when men are saying they're not having enough sex, I think part of what everybody wants is just more connection. Mm-hmm. Like men want to be, we all want to be desired, right? We all want to feel desired, but men in particular want to feel desired by their partner, in part because very often just societally, men are supposed to be, and they are shown to, in not social media, but like in films and TV, right, to be the initiator. So there's a lot of pressure on men to initiate. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of pressure on women to perform, for both men and women to perform. But men want to be desired. They want to know that their partner's attracted to them, that they want to be with them. And I think for a lot of men, and this is a big misfire between the sexes, for men, they also want intimacy. They want emotional connection and intimacy, but the doorway for most men is through physical contact. And it may not be sex, but a big misfire is like a man goes and puts his hand on his partner's shoulder and she thinks he wants sex. And what he really wants is just some physical connection because we haven't done a good job in communicating with each other about what these signals mean. That's a very, very common experience. Women on the other side, mm-hmm. when they want to rather read a book, they're not in the mood. There could be a lot of different things, but a lot of times it goes back to what I said in the beginning. They're feeling distant from their partner. They're feeling some sort of emotional disconnection, which makes them not sexual. Your nervous system literally shuts down.
Yeah.
That, what happens when there's conflict or when you're feeling that distance that you can't really put in words, but you feel it in your body when your partner is in the room. You're like, oh, I'm sure you felt it. I feel it with my partner. Oh, something's going on. I can feel that, right? You have a sense of that. And that really just shuts our nervous system down, which doesn't really allow for sexuality to be in the picture. And it may be that they've been feeling pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, miss the signal. I really just want to cuddle with you. But I'm afraid that if I cuddle with you, you're going to want to have sex with me, and I don't want to have sex tonight. So there's a lot of fear around saying something that's going to upset your partner. And so it's easier just to avoid those hard conversations. I think that's a part of it. I can name 5 other things, which is, a lot of women are having bad sex, period. Because, as you said in the very beginning, nobody teaches anybody how to have sex. A lot of women are not being touched the way they want to be touched. They're being pushed into having intercourse well before they're ready to have intercourse. There's all sorts of, especially in the younger generation, there's all sorts of really weird sexual acts that they see on porn that, how many people are like choking each other, which maybe feels good for some people if you know how to do it, but maybe like freaks you out, right?
Yeah.
That's not safe. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Don't put your hand around my neck. Right?
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's so common in porn. I mean, not that I watch a ton of porn or anything like that. This is from what I've read. It's so common. That is one of the issues, that young women are getting freaked out, and then they feel this guilt because they think that that is the way it's supposed to be, because
Right.
it's a relatively new thing, I think, in porn,
Yes.
where it's taken over like mainstream.
Yes.
And it's not niche. Well,
Yeah.
this is so interesting. Is there any truth to this? I've heard for men to be told foreplay starts in the morning when you do the dishes. Is there any truth to men who do more domestic chores have a better sex life? And why is that? I mean, I have
Wow.
my
Okay.
suspicions.
I get that. I totally get that. It may be true for some people, because I could also see it being the opposite, but it may be true for some people because it feels like you understand, like you're actually there. It's something that you're doing, that you're supporting your partner. You're not in this gender-based kind of role, especially like if you're a working mom and you're already taking care of the kids and having to get them to school and pack their bags and their lunches. Having your partner actually help out and support you, I can see can be very sexy for people. Like, I think when my partner cooks, which he does a lot, I'm like, hold on. It also feels like maybe you're being taken care of. There's a way in which, some of your needs are being taken care of and you don't have to ask for it. Because a lot of times women feel like we're always having to ask for, oh, will you do the dishes? Oh, will you take the trash out? We're always having to, like, we're controlling the household and the chores and everything else. And when somebody just steps up to the plate and does something like that, it's like, oh, thank you. You saw me. Right?
Yes, it's protecting the energy, because if the woman at the end of the day is too tired, then instead of blaming her, protect the energy. And you're right. I also I don't know if I'm going to keep this in, but I think it's so sexy when like my man cooks. I think it's hot, and I think it's both of those things. First of all, it's protecting my energy, but it's also protective and nurturing at the same time. Yeah, I think straight men would be so stunned to know, no, you don't have to be a millionaire with a fast car. If you just take your shirt off and get in the kitchen and make a meal, you might get lucky that night.
Yeah, I think you have a better chance.
You have a better chance. You have a better chance. Yeah, and I've also heard that men should start reading the erotic fiction that their wives or their partners are reading.
Super helpful, because then they begin to understand. Again, we have all these different sexual styles, and it's really important to understand. And also something called, do you know about this, called core desires? This would be great to teach your classmates.
Ooh, okay. Core desires.
Core desires. You're going to like this. Core desires are the emotions that you want to have when you're having sex, not the sensations, not the feelings, not the positions, right? It's actually the feelings that you want to have. So a lot of women, they read erotica where they're really being romanced because they want to feel like that they're being worshipped. That's the feeling. Or they like kink. Why was 50 Shades of Grey so popular? Because all of a sudden it became acceptable and women got to see like, oh yeah, maybe this could be hot for me just to allow myself to surrender and have somebody control me at some level, right? Although of course we know we're always in control when you're on the bottom. And really starting to understand where those emotions come, which actually start in childhood. So they're actually childhood wounds. So these core desires emanate from your childhood wounds, but we find them, how they're expressed is through our fantasies, so our most common fantasies, or like our peak sexual experience, the most exciting thing that's ever happened in your life sexually, or something that hasn't happened, but maybe you read about. You haven't fantasized about it, because a lot of women do still really do struggle with fantasies, or what we conceive of or perceive as fantasies, but actually instead it's something that like, oh boy, if that happened, I can imagine that being really hot. But when you go back and look at and identify what those feelings are, you see that they're childhood wounds. And this is a way of soothing those wounds, either by repairing them. So you give them like a missed experience, or repeating it with agency, with your own control. And that's one of the things that makes sex amazing for couples, right? Or for anybody, is not just that your physical needs are being met, but that those emotional, those core childhood wounds are being soothed. And when those emotions are being met, you're just like, I want more of this. I want more of this. I want more of this. It's a fascinating area of study.
Yes, I know our time's at the end. Xanet, what a joy. And last final question. Would the world be a better place if people engaged in sex more?
I don't think
If
we'd be in the
if
war that we're in
solve
right
the
now.
world's problems. I mean, who wants to go lie, cheat, and steal if you're getting laid?
Right, exactly.
Who's going to be mean and grumpy if the night before you pulled out the best toys for like a couple of hours?
Yeah.
Had some Marvin Gaye
I don't think
playing.
we'd be in the war that we're in right now
All right,
if
let's
there was
get world peace
focus
by having people
have
get
sex.
busy.
Yeah,
Okay? So
I think that
expend their
works.
energy and increase their happiness, their oxytocin. It's science. Jeanette, have a wonderful day. Thank
Great
you.
meeting you. Bye.
Bye. Good is in the Details is produced by Dr. Gwendolyn Dolske and Rudy Sallow. If you're enjoying the pod, please scroll down to the bottom on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and hit that 5-star review. Every click, every rating helps us so much in this project of public philosophy. Check out the show notes so that you can get links to Xanet's books and maybe do one of her retreats or her virtual coaching. Who knows? And if today's conversation left you wanting more philosophy, more depth, more of the questions that don't have easy answers, that's what our Patreon is for. Bonus content and early access to conversations like this one. Find us at patreon.com/goodisinthedetails. Okay, until next time, bye.